This video is going to show you solo Grandmaster Nightfall getting platinum rank. This was the final GM that I needed to do solo for the Conqueror sale, which for me was Moon, just because I didn't get round to Moon when it was the featured GM a couple of weeks ago. So I didn't feel like waiting for the weekly featured GM to be Moon, so I just finished my CP off and just uploaded it today. I wasn't really fussed about it. I know that it's Hypernet and people want Hypernet runs, but I've already uploaded a Hypernet run. So I wasn't, sort of too fussed when I upload this, but it is with a twist, and the twist is that, well, there's a couple of twists to the run. Number one, it's a minus 40 power GM, so I'm 1800 in power, and the GM is 1840. Also, we're doing it with a collections weapon, Wendigo, and there's a massive reason for that. The old Wendigo, the Sunset Wendigo, and we're not doing it on a solar subclass. Because solar subclasses at the minute when you're GMs, they don't really feel like GMs because it's really easy with solar subclasses. Like Titan, Warlock, Hunter. I understand that people are going to want to run those classes for easy clears, and I've done it myself. But once it gets to the 2-month mark of a season, like, once it's 6-7 weeks, if you play with only one subclass, you do start to fatigue on the game a little bit. So that's why I'm doing it on Void. And also Void is really good for the boss fight. Getting to the boss, it's a little rather slow compared to other classes. But when you get to the boss fight, it's actually really good for that, despite Void Surge not being up. Despite, it not being a featured element for the artifact. So getting more over on the run itself. So the reason why I've done a minus 40 clear is because it was hand in hand, because I was faced with a problem, right? Because here's the problem. So Polaris Lance stuns unstoppable champions, we all know this. But some of you don't know the exact details on how and why it does stun unstoppables in the way that it does. If you were on a solar subclass, let's take Dawn Chorus, Dawnblade, right, with the Daybreak Super. If you run all fragments and you do it all properly, Polaris Lance will stun in one ignition shot. Once you get your ignition shots, so 4 or 5 shots, you'll get the stun. Without the solar fragments, it will take 2 sets of ignition shots to do it, i.e. 10 shots. That's a lot more to stun an unstoppable, especially the nature of this GM when we get to the ghost part. So it got me thinking, right, so I want to run an unstoppable weapon in this. Right? But that presents a problem, because if I run, what I was running was blind and nades, a kinetic GL with blind and nades. Right? Which meant I couldn't run an unstoppable weapon in my kinetic slot. Now there are other choices like Leviathan's Breath. The problem with that is that I can't use Polaris, which I wanted to use Polaris Lance on this run. We knocked the major off the map, by the way, which counts. I'll talk about that in a minute. So that presented a problem. So I was like, is there any heavy GL with blind and nades? First thing I thought was Wendigo, the classic Wendigo. Well, actually no, I thought the new Wendigo, because they brought Wendigo back. Now I couldn't remember, right, because it was a while ago. The mages fell off. That means we lose, that debuff goes away. But I checked the rules for the new Wendigo, because I'd forgot when they came out whether Blind and Nades was on it or not. And Blind and Nades isn't on it, which was a huge failure, and they should have brought Blind and Nades back for Wendigo. Right? Because that's the identity of the gun. Or one of its, with them bringing back the rules, it was fine the way they done it. With the, well, they could have bait and switch on it. Stuff like that as well. They need to update the rules on Wendigo, in my opinion. But the rules were good on it. Right? There were some really good rules on it and stuff, but I don't understand why they didn't bring back blind and nades. Like it's a problem. Like it isn't a problem at all. You're then making a utility weapon in the heavy slot, which sometimes isn't a bad thing if you are using a supercharged exotic primary like Polaris Lance, and Polaris Lance is doing all your work, all your heavy lifting, right? If you want to run an unstopped weapon in your kinetic slot, right, then Wendigo isn't a bad idea to, you know, have with blinding nades. I'm on about the new rule. Or unsunset the old one and make it that we can infuse it to 1810. I don't know, but funny thing is, because when I equipped Wendigo, it put me 1800 power exact. So that's what gave me the idea to do minus 40 power and then do it with Wendigo, right? You'll see why, for when we get to the boss fight, why I wanted blinding nades on. There'll be other, you know, but there'll be players that do without, obviously, you know. But like I say, I really wanted to showcase the power of what a heavy GL would be like with blinding nades, especially an 1810 variant. And the stock roll, the old roll, is a god roll. Autoload and holster, explosive light, and blinding nades. Explosive light's a bit of whatever because blinding nades does nerf your damage. So there could be something else there instead. But it just goes to show that there will be a place for a utility heavy GL, right? In the game. There is a chill clip stasis heavy GL which would have utility, but it isn't gonna blind them. It's gonna freeze them, yeah. You top half your mag, but you're gonna have to spend 2 shots. Whereas Wendigo would just spend 1. The advantage though with the stasis GL, that, you know, Typhoon is it? The advantage to that is that it's 1810. It's not going to put you at a 40 power disadvantage. Which, by the way, you need to be 17 artifact power to even try this, because the 1600 power Wendigo is going to nerf your power that much that you're going to need that much artifact power to buff you to the level. Now, I haven't played a lot this season. The only reason why I'm 17 artifact power is because of the seasonal triumphs, the weekly triumphs. I just handed a bunch of those in and was 17 artifact power. So don't think I've played a lot this season, because I haven't. So that's the only reason why that worked out. This start section this start section is RNG a little bit, but you will notice if you run a solo subclass with Ember of Eruption, Ember of Ashes and stuff, and Ember of Char, your ignitions will spread out more to the surrounding enemies and you clear this area in 4 minutes. Right? Now we go on a different class that doesn't have soul fragments. It takes much longer because your ignitions aren't spreading out to the enemies as good. So it's going to take longer. Naturally, it just will. This run will demonstrate to you that once you start to not run the best loadout, right, all the little changes, right, all the little loadout changes start to add up on the time of the GM. I was doing a solo hunter run and it was around about 30-35 minutes clear. Console run. Decent time. I've seen somebody do it, what, 21 minutes solo hunter? Right. That's using everything as optimized as possible. That's an optimized run. Obviously there's a lot of skill in it as well, but it's an optimized run. This is not an optimized run. This is showing you a run where you adapt that isn't optimized. But how do you adapt as a player? That's what the purpose of the run is. So okay, what if your build is slightly wrong? What if it's slightly off? Then how do we do the run then? And that's the runs I've done over the years. I've done your efficient runs, I've done your speed runs, your farms runs, I've done loads of those over the years. Right, but I've also done these runs where there's something slightly wrong about it. And it's good because it gives an opportunity to demonstrate if things go wrong, how do you adapt to it? If you always run the meta, you will never experience this. Therefore, you'll never grow and you'll never really understand things about enemies and spawns and stuff. You know, or what to do when this happens. Do you have a plan B? Stuff like that. You'll never understand that. It's the same thing. It's that paradox. If you always play in a fire team, you will never understand the game fully. Never. If you only ever play in a fire team. And that's true because there is 2 sides to the game. I know that because I've played both. I used to play obviously a lot of fire team gameplay. I like a lot. I even used to make fire team videos way back in the day, years and years and years ago. So I've seen both sides. to the story. And like I said, in a fire team, all the enemies are different. It's straightforward. Why? Because all he adds aggro on each member of your fire team, and it's shared out. The enemy aggro is shared between your fire team. Therefore, it's easier. Not to mention that your damage should be tripled because there's 3 of you, as opposed to solo. However, there is solo operator this season, but it still stands to reason that, you know, there's 2 parties to the game, which I might make a video about this. I just don't know how to get that into context for a video, but that will happen. There'll be some videos like that coming up. But yeah, like I say, that's what this video is going to demonstrate. I've sped up the parts that I need to. Obviously, the run's going to be longer because there's things that are wrong with the loadout. Number 1, it's not on solar. Number 2, I'm 40 levels under. And number 3, I haven't got a heavy weapon. Because Wendigo is going to do no damage, but the utility of the weapon's going to be... You're going to see how good it is, like coming up, like at the boss especially, which, like I say, I'm looking forward to showing you that bit. So we're going to proc a Devour Chain here, with a nade and stuff. And blind, get my initial blind with Wendigo. This is where you'll see Wendigo's power a little bit. Plus there's some arc shields in this, so it's good. Does no damage at all, that's fine. Enemies are skulls, so that's how you know when you're 40 levels under, or past. I think it's I think it's 30 levels under they get to skulls, or it might be 26. I'm not sure. Enemies are swords at minus 25 delta, which is your standard GM. Past that, it goes to skulls. What's the difference? Well, from what I remember, from the tests I remember seeing, I think it's around about 8% damage less. You do 8% less damage than what you usually would at minus 25. So is it that much different? For damage dealt, no. Like, you look at my hand cannon, it's absolutely destroying. Like Fatebringer. This is explosive payload frenzy, which those 2 perks stack. Now I've got this particular hand cannon on to buff my damage at the very least in the exploit zone. I'm going to get an invis here, skip enemies, pop super. We're on Nova Warp. So that's also another... Some people would say that this is a handicap that I'm running Nova Warp, but in this case it is not at all. Right, which I can go into the Nova variants of why Nova Bomb can be bad in endgame. It can be good, it can be bad, it depends. This is the exploit zone. I've already taught this, so you need to jump in this zone and then have your character float. You need to hug the front of the girder, whatever this is, and your character will sort of float. That's how you know that you're in the exploit zone properly. If you're not doing that, if your character hasn't done that, the enemies will nade you and shoot at you, and you will definitely die in this zone. So, you first want to understand this room. It's based on priority targets, champions and mini-bosses. The first wave is 25%. Now, there's 3 doors, and it's RNG where the unstoppable ogres spawn. Am I going to get luck? Yeah, I did. So I pre-aimed my hand cannon. I actually stored Polaris with 3 shots to then get stuns after this unstoppable hand cannon stun. Then we can get some chain stopping on this unstop before he gets here. The better the damage is right now that we get in, the easier and quicker this bit will be. Because once the unstop gets to where I am, this unstop's what likes to hide. Especially when there's 2 of them. So we're prioritizing the unstop in front, like the one at the back, sorry. So we'll get another stun, because remember, if you're not on solar, Polaris doesn't stun as quick. It takes too long to stun, so that's why we've got a hand cannon on to substitute that. That's what it's on for. Because once you get an initial stun, the chain stunning for Polaris will be a little bit easier. On solar, this isn't necessary, because you'll get it, well, not as necessary, I would say. So this is where we'll get the unstop that hides in front of the girder. Is that we'll get a stun with a hand cannon and then keep nading him. Don't rift in this zone. I know I've actually got a good void build on here with double balls from detonation and double bomber, which helps just to get your nade back and stuff. But That falls down at this bit because I don't want to rift. The reason why you don't want to rift in this zone is there's a chance that it will take you out of the exploit zone slightly. And it raises you up a little bit when you rift because you go in a third-person animation, don't you? Right? And then it raises you up. And then enemies start to detect you when you rift. Sometimes. Not every time. I just didn't want to take the risk of doing that because I can't be bothered where it just... enemies start to sense you. So I just decided to, when I get a devour kill there, kill some of the enemies to get my nade back so I can keep nading this champ over and over like so. So like I've got a devour chain now, so I'll use some of the ads, right, to quickly get a grenade back. So we'll get another stun. So particularly for this bit, Fatebringer helps out a lot because Polaris can't do anything against this unstop. What you can do on Solar is proc your Polaris lands 4 shots. Then on the 5th shot, shoot the champ, it'll stun him. On Void, it won't work like that. So that strat goes out the window. Which is why I'm using a hand cannon to speed this bit up. Because without it, with Wendigo and no machine gun or anything like you usually would, like fixed odds, this bit will be painfully slow. So I'm using the hand cannon to substitute time, to save on time. My standard run, like, if I was to use optimize, generally I'll get out of this area by 13 minutes. So I'm not doing too bad on a subclass that's, you know, not as good. So we're not too far on time right now. The run hasn't sacrificed too much yet. This one stops push because we aggroed him by shooting at the wall to our right. That technique sometimes works. If it does work, that's good. It's going to save you time. We're going to try and get some stuns with Polaris, but then we're going to get a second stun with the hand cannon, but it's going to be too late. I know he's going to strafe left before I can do it. That's fine though. When there's 2 unstops, they'll just take turns, which I've noticed as well. Why they do that, I haven't got a clue, but they just seem to keep doing that. So we'll get a stun when we get our nade. So stun, nade, and then just hand cannon. It's generally like 4 to 5 nades to kill 1 unstop, which is, it does seem quite a lot, but it goes in. This bit, it doesn't take that long. Obviously I don't understand people aren't going to use Wendigo, but if I was to use Wendigo right now, it would blind me because of the blast, because of the where we're standing. It would just end up hitting that wall. I know because I've already pre-shot Wendigo and seen that it just blinds you. Not only does it blind you, it moves your character out of the exploit zone, which is annoying. So that's why I didn't use any heavy at all on this bit. It wouldn't do any damage anyways because it's 1600 power. So it makes no odds. It doesn't matter. We've got the weakening effect on for the fragment with tier 10 discipline. Right, so tier 10 discipline, tier 10 resilience. That's with a minus 20 discipline stat. So the armor I've got on is decent for the Warlock for this particular setup. We'll just keep doing this, keep taking the turns. One artifact mod that we do have on that is helping out is the ability damage one. So there's an artifact mod this season that increases ability damage against taken and scorn enemies, right? That one's huge because that works everywhere in the game. If you're up against taken or scorn enemies, you get it. It worries me about that because we have a new dungeon that's based around scorn. Right, and people are using certain abilities like Strand Titan and stuff, or Golden Gun Night Off, to do extra damage to these enemies. I'm just thinking though, only the first one Scorn. I'm not sure if I don't know if anyone knows with the. I suppose in the new Warlord's Ruin dungeon, the meatball boss. I suppose he's not classed as Scorn, is he? Or is he? I don't know. I don't have a clue about that. But if he is, you're getting a buff. Which, bear in mind, after Final Shape, or sorry, during Final Shape, if you revisit Warlord's Ruin or whatever, you won't get that buff. which means the dungeon won't feel as good. So we could be in that issue with when Spire the Watcher launched and we had Solo Operator and all these buffs, and then the season afterwards no one played it. Because why? Well, because the bosses were too tanky. I will say, I suppose in Warlock's Ruin the bosses aren't that tanky compared to other dungeons, so it shouldn't be as bad, I suppose. So I think we're on the final unstop now for this. It's just the same thing over and over. I would refrain from using any supers as well in this zone. Like, say you are on a solo. The only super you can use, I'm aware of, is Golden Gun. If you use Dawnblade, you will definitely get sensed. The enemies will sense you. If you use a Nova Bomb, your kite is going to jump up. You won't jump up, but it will sort of float when you do your Nova. It's a big no-no not to do it. Obviously, I'm Nova Warp, so it makes no odds to me. But you can't use any supers in this zone when you're soloing it. Should probably die in 2 more nades. 1 more nade after this. So the percentages for this room, like I was saying before, 25%, then it's 50%, then it's 75. So each percentage, what you can do is proc Polaris Lance's perks, which from what I've found is you can stack 3 shots, which it shows you on the sight of the gun, right? You can proc 3 shots and store the gun and you keep it. But if you proc 4 shots, eventually you lose them, which is a weird oddity, but that's how it is. So I get my 3 crits before unstops come, then stun with hand cannon, so that way I get to my 5th shot quicker. You'll see people do stuff like that, which it's funny because before this season no one was doing anything with Polaris. So little tricks with Polaris have come out because of the solar season. But no one really pays attention to it, to certain guns, because there's no need to until, you know, that potent where the finer details come out and people start doing this. Like, you could see people in runs when the season first came out. They were, you know, proccing your 4th shot and then hitting the 5th shot on a separate target and doing all these tricks. Whereas in the past, people just used Polaris for PvP. It was just more of a PvP gun, honestly. It was decent in PvE when there was Overlord Scout up or a champ mod, but there was never a point to use it really over whatever the meta was at the time. But I had used it in GMs. I'd used it for a few. But mostly you weren't seeing any Polaris runs. Handful of runs. I'm talking about 5 users. But this season, that's all you see because, well, it is a fun playstyle for a while, but the novelty wears off. It does wear off. We're going to speed this bit up because I'm just choosing to kill the extra champs. The run's going to be longer anyways, so I would just prefer to do it like this rather than do the seals or whatever. It just means you get 2 extra champs, which if you don't kill them you won't get plat, which is kind of unfair in my opinion, but that's the mechanic of this, I suppose. So I'm going to get down a nade and pre-kill some of these ads, because these ads will not despawn. They will be up whilst the champ's up. So we need to make sure we get the captains and stuff because they're annoying. We've got a scorn unstop and a barrier. I see an opportunity to get the barrier because the barrier's peaked out and none of the ads can see me, but this doesn't end up working out as good as I would hope, I don't think. There's the piece of cover in my way, so that's fine. That's unfortunate. It's fine though. That's also stunning the unstop as well, whilst because of the ignitions and stuff. So they're close enough for that to count still. One thing noticeable on this as well is that I got a lot less radiant than what you generally would have. Only have 9 seconds and stuff. It's a little different. I know it's easy reprocced with the artifact mods, but it was something I noticed as opposed to when I usually play with Dawnblade and stuff. Radiant's more abundant than what it is on this, but it is interesting, and I do like what they're trying to do. That's the future of the game now. So we've had the 3.0 subclasses since Witch Queen, right? You've had your Void, your Arc, your Solar, and then you've had Strand or whatever. But focusing more on the 3.0 subclasses, we've had those upgrades. So what's the future of the game now? I think what they're gonna do, and which they're already doing it now. This is what I want them to do, is where they bring new mods to the game, permanent in-game mods, not artifact mods, permanent in-game mods, where you, when you combine elements in the game, you get a buff. So there's an artifact mod called Torch right now. So it says something like, what does it say? You do increased damage, right, when an enemy is affected by a strand debuff or a stasis debuff or whatever. Well, you could take that mod further. So if an enemy is affected by solar elemental damage, then Void does more, or Arc does more, or whatever. This would open the game up massively in new ways, right? Because then you could start having your fire team coordination completely different, right? Where it might be a necessity for your fire team to spread out elements, whatever the system. So the game needs an element system in place. I'm not on about a mixing of element system. A complete new system needs to go in the game. It's sort of in the game now via artifact mods. It needs to be a permanent thing, because that's what would elevate the game, I think. I've said about this before in the past. With Warframe system, the game Warframe, you can combine 2 elements together to make a new element. I've thought that Destiny could do something similar, but they don't. They just seem to want to just give you the 3 light subclasses and then the 2 dark ones, and that's how they sort of just want to do. But I don't think that's enough for the future of the game, because they're already wanting you to do cross abilities. We're doing it right now. Radiant is solar. I'm on Void. Yeah? So that's been a big thing this season, is that they're wanting to have you use verbs of different elements to use it on different subclasses. Another example is the Void crossbow sidearm thing. People are using that with Behemoth because it's interesting, because you get Devour. You get Devour on Stasis. That's interesting because it's unique to the gun. So we're having guns have your verbs, right, for you to then use a different element. So then you're having this cross thing going on, right? Which is the only way forward, because you've had your Void 3.0 elements to the maximum now. You've saw Void at its strongest. People think Void's weak now, but do you remember when it first came out, how strong it was? Arc, we've seen that at its strongest. Arc Titans and Warlocks and stuff like that. In the past, when they first came out, the Storm Grenades. We've had Solar at its strongest, Classy Restoration. So you've had all the elements at their best, at their peak. The next step forward is to have them cross ability. Right? And you can do that by making some mods, but they need to start committing to the game instead of making artifact mods. Fair enough, they're going to have this artifact system in place, and I don't know if it's still going to be in place after Final Shape or whatever, but they need to start investing in the game and say, right, these are permanent mods, so then we can start build crafting for the future rather than 3 months. 3 months to build craft, in my opinion, isn't long enough. To commit to a build isn't long enough. I'm on about various builds, right? Whereas right now what we've got is commit to 1 build for 1 season, or a handful of builds. I'm on about, right, you know, let's have a mod in the game where it's like up. That's a feature of the game. I'm all for a feature to stay in the game rather than these mods that come and go. Because once they're gone, they're gone. You might see them again, you might not. It's just something that it's a tiresome system now, and they need to sort of come away from it. Or maybe have a hybrid system where you have got your IFAG mods, but you've also got these new permanent mods starting to creep in the game. Because all you've got really now is your surge builds. That's really all you've got. You've got nothing else with builds. So that's something that they need to... After Final Shape, they've got to start looking at this stuff, because then that's the new era of the game. So I would almost certainly expect a new power system, a new mod system. I would like all the new system. Nightfall, new system, new platinum rating system. All needs to be changed. You can't continue on like this. If they do, people are just going to sort of drop off. I'll definitely drop off with interest. Final Shape won't drop off, but afterwards, those episode things, it'll drop off. For PvE players, you need to put new systems in, because the game's figured out right now. We all have the game figured out. We understand the game, like players understand the game. It's a very easy game to understand at the minute, for the most part. There are some newer players who don't understand the game. That's just because you're new. That's not because of anything else. That's just because you're brand new and you probably haven't watched much videos. So that's what they need to do to bring the game on. Whether they do or not is a different thing. I don't know. The hand cannon's good for this bit because, like I said, if you're not on solo, the ignitions from Polaris takes 2 waves to get that stun. So getting the initial stun with a hand cannon's nice. What you've got to understand on this little bit, because you're using a scout rifle like that, you need to sustain fire against targets and even the boss. So you need to learn to strafe. So while I'm shooting that champ, I'm looking at the boss's charged sniper, right? So when it charges, as the boss is about to fire, I strafe, and that way the boss doesn't shoot you because he just turns his gun on and off. Pay attention to it to the next time when I'm actually doing damage to the boss. We sped up the footage of when we were doing damage just for purposes. The Voidwalker's really good up here for getting your kills immediately with the nade and debuffs. It works really well up here. Like Voidwalker in general is being really good on this GM for the exploit zone here. Getting to the boss it's rather slow, but at the boss fight it's really good. It works decent. And it works well when we go down there as well, which obviously we need to. So once all ads are cleared, all snipers especially, all stalkers. Stalkers are bad for nades. You need to get your 3 captains weak. Well, in actual fact, I've figured out what the best thing to do. This is a manipulation of the enemy spawns. Kill one of the captains and leave 2 of them finishable. The reason why you do this is because you won't get an extra spawn of captain if there's 2 alive. But if there's only 1 captain alive, you will get another captain. So what's the point in having 3 captains up? That's more risk of death. So what you do, like I said, kill one of the captains and leave the other 2 finishable. That's the key thing though. If you're not going to do this with... I would recommend doing this on anything, unless you are using Hunter Invis, then it doesn't matter. But if on any class, do what I'm doing. This is very safe. So like I said, kill one of the captains, doesn't matter which. Whichever you can get whichever captain you can get your hands on, to be honest, because they're being awkward at the minute. I'm not going to waste any blinding shots because 17 shots, I'm going to need them. Right? So I could be blinding them now, but I'm not going to. Because it's a failsafe for later on. At the end, near the end, I need to make sure I've got plenty of heavy. So that's why I'm not using any Wendigo at all. Because I could blind them and then kill them if I wanted to right now, but I'm not going to. Right, so we've chose to kill that captain there. Now we just want to get the other one finishable. So we're prepping the room. This is prepping the room. This makes it all that much easier. We've got a void fragment on. You go in Viz on finish a kill, which is only 4 or 5 seconds, but it is all the difference. If you can, whenever you're playing a void, even on like Void Titan, it's worth doing. Because the 4 seconds of invis is going to de-aggro the captain, and it's going to ensure that we get the battery dunk. It's going to ensure it. It's going to give us an insurance. So We're going to drop down, make sure boss doesn't snipe us. We're going to go to our safe zone, which is over here. There's a zone like this on the left as well, identical. Then we're just going to wait for the captains to spread out. So when you come to this zone, I've noticed one captain will spread out from the other. And we're going to wait for this captain over here to sort of come over. We're going to get Wendigo out. We're going to get a blind, make sure we do. We'll go for the finisher kill. The captain to our right will push us, but we go invis, of course. Pick up fragment. Dunk battery. Then wait for the next enemy spawn. We're going to instantly spawn kill them with the nade. We'll get a blind in with that. So they're not only blinded, but they're going to be killed by the void nade. All enemies are killed right away. That's such a good, valuable nade that we just did there. Being able to spawn kill the enemies on this round, like that, is very valuable. We'll get another blind in. One of them's finishable. Both captains are on each other. I'll get another blind with Wendigo. That blinds both captains, means I won't get hit on the way there to get finisher kill, invis. Dunk battery behind for cover, so the boss doesn't snipe. You always got to remember the boss can snipe you. He won't one-shot us at -40, but he will get us very weak. So that's 2 batteries dunked. This spawn was left, but I wasn't able to do it, so I'll get a nade. I'm going to pop super, because this enemy wave is spread out. Okay, it's a problem. So we use a Nova Warp here. We use the strength of the Roman super. That's, you know, one reason why we've got it on, is so that if we need to do emergency super pop, it's very valuable having a Roman super. Which I haven't talked about Nova Bomb much. So the 3 variants of Nova Bomb. So you've got the Cataclysmic Nova, that's the Tracken one, which is what everyone used to use. They then buffed the Singularity Nova, and that is now technically the better Nova, as long as you're good with Nova Bomb. The thing about it is, the thing about the Cataclysmic Nova is that it gets shot down in endgame content. The AI of the enemies is higher, right? Which means if you're far away from them, say you're at the exploit zone and you do your Cataclysmic Nova, they just shoot it down. It's a worthless super. That's why you're seeing when people play Nova, they play the Singularity one, because you can, it won't get shot down. But you need to make sure you hit your Nova, unless it's worthless. But for this GM, if I was to even run this back with a better loadout, I would still run Nova Warp, because our nades are doing everything for us. The Polaris is doing everything for us. Why do we need a Nova? For what? For what really is the Nova going to help us out with? Nova Warp's better on our clear. It's not a DPS super, but you don't need DPS in GMs. It never has been a DPS game. It's always been a survivability utility game, which, like I said before, solo content in Destiny 2 is totally different to fire team play. It's like an entirely different game. So you're playing a different game. So you've got to play to the rules. Survivability, utility is always better than DPS sort of stuff. Unless the DPS build is that good where it means that champs are a non-factor, or an enemy type is a non-factor. If it's worth it that much, then okay, it's worth it. Just depends. Everything's different. This enemy spawn was really on top of us. We're going to get a couple of blinds though. And what I noticed with Wendigo, because I haven't played with it for a long time, is that the blind and radius on Wendigo seems to be larger than what it is on a kinetic GL. It feels like that. I don't know if that is the actual case, but it might be because it's a heavy, and it's just different. A drum GL's different to a special GL. So it might be that, I don't know, but it felt that way when I was playing. We're going to get a blind here because this captain's getting far too close. Boss is sniping us. All ads are down, so that was good play there. Wendigo saved us. We need to wait for Nova Warp. This will confirm the clear if we wait for Nova, so you understand how important it is. We have 1 blind and GL left. That's why I saved heavy earlier. Like I said to you earlier, we saved heavy for this moment, because I knew that I would be spamming it. We'll get our invis kill. spam battery, and then use Nova Warp. This will confirm us to get to exploit zone without being sniped, because there is a high chance of death there. If both the captain and the boss hits us, it's a death. At 45 minutes in, I don't fancy it, do you? So that's why we use Nova Warp there to confirm exit, and then it confirms to get to this zone. That's valuable. That's more valuable than any other Novas, right? Than any other super that we would use. So like I say, it's just showing you the strength of a Roman super. And there are moments in the game where, on new activities, where it is better for survivability solo-wise to run a Roman super. The prime example of it is Strand Titan. Right, you could do a solo GM with Strand Titan. The survivability of you in doing that is skyrocketing. Because not only are you in a Roman super with super damage resistance, you are also in a super that does massive damage to champs and stuff. This is the same rule for most Roman supers. The only Roman super I would say that is weak right now and needs a lot of help, and I don't know why there's some Stasis Warlocks in denial about it, but it's Sharebinder. Because even Behemoth Titan is super strong, the Roman super. I recommend that you try and use it, because it's actually strong right now. Right? But Sharebinder is probably, as far as I'm aware, it's the weakest Roman super that we have. Arcstride is even stronger than it. It does more damage. So, obviously Sharebinder's got a lot of other things going for it. Its utility is where its strength is. But I don't care. It still needs a better Roman super. It used to do a lot more than what it does nowadays. So that's the only time where I say, alright, that super in particular isn't that good. But like I said, it's just showing you the pros and cons. There are times where you do want to use a one and done super, right? Like T-Crash or something like that. It just depends on what you're playing, what content you're on, what boss you're up against. You know, things are different depending on what you're doing. The Void Nade's doing really well at the boss here. We'll get a we'll kill that Tether. Sometimes the boss puts Tethers up as well on phase 2. There's not much to worry about the boss. Just try and strafe the boss and the snipes. If you do get hit by 2 snipers, you are dead. So it is an exploit zone, but it's also a little bit, you're sort of uncomfortable sitting up here. You can be. So just make sure you keep strafing. Don't just stand still, unless you will get sniped just like that. But if I can do this at -40, I'm sure that you can do it at -25 with an actual heavy. If I was recommending a Warlock run, it would probably be Conqueror Polaris. Conqueror Polaris with a Kinetic Blind and GL, because you wouldn't need Unstop, because Polaris would be more effective, and then a Fixed Odds LMG. And that would be your stock run. But most people could complete this, and obviously with the exploits. Without exploit, everything's a little different, obviously. And I wasn't wanting to really do a non-exploit run -40 power. I could have done. I could have invested the time and got the clear and done all that, but I just didn't feel like putting too much time into it. Because if views are low on Destiny right now, then what's the point of me going the extra mile? You have to see what the view retention's like for the game, which there are less players playing. I'm checking it. I'm checking it quite often, and there are less players playing D2 each day because the seasons wore off. All right, the season high seasons. We're mid-season now. You haven't got much going on. You've got that thing next week where you can get Last Wish raid weapons for free on that quest. But that's not a lot, is it really? So there's not going to be anything major now till Final Shape. So people are going to naturally drop off, going to start playing other games, and then they'll wait for Final Shape. And then you get your tryhards that still play, no matter what. That's up to them. It's a free life. You can do what you want. But that's just really where we are with the game at the minute. That's why you're not seeing a lot of uploads. I mean, you are off some people, but then some people are just starting to drop off entirely. But you can't get blood out of a stone. It is what it is. We'll finish the boss off with a super, just because the boss was being annoying right now. But that was a solo GM for this. For Conqueror Sale, hope you enjoy. Thank you.